We're gonna give you one of the coolest strength exercises that you've never used for weightlifting, and we're gonna start right now. Okay, so when we're thinking about strength positions in the world of weightlifting, we've got to look at where that's gonna happen. Typically, it's gonna occur right off of the floor, okay? Floor to the knee is a very difficult position for weightlifters, especially because weightlifters tend to have shorter legs, like Haley Reichert, who's gonna interrupt our video session right now as she's about to snatch. If we look at that position from the floor to the knee, we need to be able to focus on what type of strength is needed. Another area that we're gonna see strength come into play is catching that clean, standing that up, grinding that out. And then also when we're in the overhead position in a split jerk. So that's where we're gonna identify the major components are gonna be pulling from the floor to the knee in the snatch or the clean, catching a very heavy clean, and then overhead in that split position, maintaining some sense of stability. So when we're talking about those strength areas, we can start to see different things happen. And typically because weightlifting is so bilateral with one unique unilateral aspect, the split jerk, we'll start to see a tendency in weightlifters, okay? We'll start to see them pull and favor one side over the other. Typically, they're gonna rotate towards the side that they're jerking. So if they hit a split jerk here, and that right leg is forward, they're gonna start to rotate towards that right side. It's gonna be the same thing when you watch somebody back squat. You can watch them squat and over top, they'll rotate slightly towards that right side if they split jerk with the right leg forward. So when we're aware of those tendencies, okay, we can also see that arise when we catch a clean and we start to see somebody rotate here. Okay, they can start to rotate towards that split jerk side. Also, when they catch a snatch, they'll start to rotate towards that right leg if it's forward. And that even does happen at times in that split position. So if we understand that they are favoring one side over the other, that can lead to a diminishment in their overall strength. And another big factor is that we have to think about, if we have athletes with shorter legs, they're going to be quad dominant. They don't recruit as well from their hamstrings and maybe not as well as they could from their glutes even. So when we're thinking about that in regards to strength, we have to come up with a movement that can sort of alleviate all those rotations and all the favoring from one side to the other. And we have to put the athlete in a position to also target their hamstrings a little bit more. And that's what we're gonna get into, that number one key exercise that you've never used to improve your strength training for weightlifting. Okay, so one of my favorite things to do during the exposure phase and during the comprehension phase is to use this movement to really try and iron out any of those structural inefficiencies. And what I mean by that is that if we see an athlete favoring one leg over the other, and that's very, very common in the sport of weightlifting, we wanna use an exercise that's gonna put them into a precarious position. They're in a position where their heart rate will go up. Okay, they'll start to sweat a little bit more. It's a little bit uncomfortable, and their body will actually increase their proprioception. So when that happens, they're going to recruit their high threshold motor units at a higher pace, okay? And in turn, they'll start to increase their structural integrity because of this specific exercise. And remember, again, exposure phase, comprehension phase, that's in the beginning. That's gonna be about 20 weeks out, 16 weeks out from a big peak. And we can use this movement to try and get rid of any of that rotation that we see. And rotation in the snatch catch or in a clean catch can lead to issues in the lower back. It can lead to issues in your knee. It can lead to shoulder issues based off of that rotation. So it's really important to make sure that we get rid of that as well as we possibly can. And that's where we're gonna go into this key movement. And we're gonna start with this. This is gonna be a single leg squat. And we'll use this even with Haley during the exposure phase, during the comprehension phase. She's worked up to 90 kilo single leg squats for 3 to 5 reps on each leg to make sure that she has that structural balance. And in turn, over time, that's gonna improve her pull. Okay, it's absolutely key to master this movement. I'm gonna show you here is that we wanna get, if somebody splits with their right leg forward, we wanna do the left leg forward first, and they're gonna start to feel like, almost like they're naked. Like, what the heck, this is so awkward, what am I doing? And they're gonna feel a little bit less coordination. But we wanna improve it as even using this as a warm-up. Okay, so you could use this single leg squat just as a warm-up to wake up their hamstrings or glute. And remember, this is an exercise that will help their pull. It will drastically improve their pull. I wanna show this too. If we can keep this foot a little bit closer and get our knee angle and to get our dorsiflexion to help our knee track forward. So if I'm here and then I come up, here and I come up, when I get to about this point here and I push my knee back here, I wanna feel my hamstring. Okay, when I'm here at this position, I wanna stay a decent relatively upright with my chest, and I want to see my knees over the toes, come back, and what I'm going to show you is that that position is very similar to the pull off the floor with where my knees are. And then when our knees come back, we want to load those hamstrings. Okay, so if I get into this position here, my hamstrings get loaded and then I drive up. Hamstrings get loaded and I try to flex my hip. Okay, so this is an absolutely fantastic movement to use to increase their strength and their pull, to increase their overall structural integrity, and to try and improve and alleviate any rotation that you could possibly see. Now, one of those key factors with weightlifters is that they want to lift as heavy as they possibly can, especially all the men. Okay, all the men want to put up as much weight as possible, and then they'll tell you, they'll say, they'll do this, and then they'll put their foot down and say, it's not the weight. It's my balance. It's not the weight, it's my balance. If you can't balance it, you're not strong enough, the weight's too much. So we need to focus on that when we're training these weightlifters early on, during exposure, during comprehension phase. Put this typically on day 3 or day 4. After day 3 or day 4, they're typically going to have an athlete day. So they're gonna be really, really sore in their glutes and in their hamstrings. So we wanna make sure on the workout splits, if it's done on day 3 or it's done on day 4, they have a day of doing athlete work, and that's gonna help alleviate any of that stress. And in turn, by day 6, when you're starting to go heavy again, they feel a little bit better. The other aspect, we wanna make sure that they're using this movement to improve off the floor and also improve that hip extension as well. So that's another key factor. Now, I'm gonna bring this up. If I have someone who rotates in that split position, typically, if we do the single leg squats during exposure, during comprehension, I will even put this in as an accessory during their ascension phase and during their summit phase, so as they get closer to the peak, holding a plate. So if they rotate to one side really, really hard when they're hitting that split position or they're in that snatch position with a catch, I will have the athlete hold a barbell or hold a plate overhead to try and really get them to focus on their trunk and to focus on their lower back, because that rotation can lead to that lower back pain, the knee pain, and potentially shoulder issues. So use this 4 to 5 sets, 3 to 5 reps, take about 1.5 minute rest, and again, do this on day 3 or day 4 to improve your overall pulling strength, improve your structural integrity, and ideally help you lead to becoming a champion weightlifter. So if you need a weightlifting program, head over to garagestrength.com, and while you're there, you can pick up our single leg squat stand and balance pad, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.